I keep telling people, sweep the leg is not a thing in sword fighting.
Thank you, Soren. And now, for this new episode of the Concurrency, as you can guess, we talk about leg sweep, or more precisely, about hitting people in the leg and the fact that it generally is a really bad idea. So, first, here's a slight explanation. In this video, I shall demonstrate a few principles. First of all, your reach decreases as you go lower, and that mainly means that if you want to go lower, you cannot reach the same space, or to reach a same spot, you need to invest more, which puts you at risk to get hit in the arm or face. Then, without engaging as much, you can still lose your arm and hand. While on the opposite, it is much easier to just stab or slash someone in the face. And that way you don't get hit in the face. Now, of course, as defense, if someone tries to hit you, can just move back your leg while hitting them. And it also allows you to, yeah, sure, you could move the weapon, but permanently you can hit them in the arm or even in the face. And of course, you can also just stab them in the face and try to get as good a reach as you can. Of course, it is not to forget that you can still jump a bit. If you want to get some extra out time. So, yeah. Now that the video is done, there's a few exceptions and other details. So, first of all, depending on the weapon and the reach you have, things get quite a bit different. For example, in the video I do have my saber, and it is a one-handed weapon, so reach is already limited with a proper two-handed weapon like Bertha right there. Well, there are certain variables that change that may make things different, but you can't just stupidly attack someone. Of course, they have less reach than you. You may still make more risky move at less risk than they would normally have. And of course, let us not forget that there are special techniques also. Different special techniques and contexts that depend on the weapon that can change pretty much everything. And speaking of which, of course, there's the fact that depending on how far you are from your adversaries, a lot of things change. So if you want to hit the leg, you technically would do it either at a very long distance where it's easier to dodge them and because you're stabbing them, or at very close range. By very close range, I mean, let's say you normally hold your weapon like this when you're at long range, and then the gun progressively gets shorter as you get closer. When you are this close, that you are basically in wrestling distance, and have started to play elbow and whatnot with your adversaries, this is usually the time when you can hit them in the leg. This is of course a special case, matter of training and so on, but you generally get the idea. If you want to hit them in the leg, you have to be close. And speaking of hitting in the leg, will you ever get your opponent to trip with the leg, to trip by hitting the leg? No. Weapons are not meant to do that. Most of them would bend rather than make the opponent, and he can also move his leg. That said, in a real combat, what happens is that you can still cut a few bits and get the opponent to then fall down because you cut the bit, but it's more of a specialized cut. Really getting throwing down an opponent is more of a wrestling move from or something from various martial arts like judo. Therefore, not a real thing. And speaking of which, in Dungeons and Dragons and other similar systems, there are trip attacks where you just get your opponent prone thanks to a special attack. That technically does not happen. If it was more realistic, trip would be a subsection of grappling, which of course resolves most wrestling cases. Therefore, it would be a specialized grapple check to pin an opponent down, and that would technically, of course, also happen with animals which get on people and attack them and try to trip them by just jumping on them. They also have, in fact, most animals in D&D have this thing that allows them to try that without, and of course attack with the natural weapons without being considered unarmed. But trust me, if you got a weapon against an animal, you're gonna use the reach advantage and you're gonna stab it before it reaches you, unless you failed at it. But you know, game balance and whatnot, the mechanic has its point in terms of balance and gameplay options. It's just that it's not really sensical. And the really stupid part is when they say that, oh, this weapon, because it has whatever shape, that it's good at tripping. The answer is no. No weapon was designed to trip. At best, we could say that a sight, not the guy who rode around the weapon, where could be used against the legs if it's the repurposed tool. But once again, it's you cut down the opponent's leg, then he falls down because of the damage, not to trip him. And one of the really stupid cases is that of the Kopesh, where, to give you a proportion idea, the normal Kopesh handle won't go further than the hand, and the blade, I think, won't even reach that. Can go up to that point, I think, maybe less. It's yeah, I think even maybe a bit less, but yeah, it's usually usually a short sword size, so think Roman Gladius and so on. So not even a saber size. If I want to compare to the saber I used in the other video, well, and the short video included that one. So due to this lesser reach, it's even more impractical to hit in the leg. And besides, Kopesh were meant to be used with shield. So in these cases, well, there are techniques to hit the leg with a shield, but ideally you still want to hit either the opponent's hand or head. If you can get the shoulder rest of the weapon, yeah, for you to be the right one, so the weapon bearing arm of the enemy, that's usually what you aim to do. Granted, there are still sword and shield manner to hit the leg, but they're not necessarily the most optimal. And in a fight, ideally what you want is to disarm your adversary by hitting the hand, or just get rid of him by hitting him at the head. In fact, most archaeological, they go toward this. So I think that's pretty much it for now. And on this, I'll bid you farewell, and until next time on the Count See.